Yep. All right. We're live right now. Um yeah. So our guest today, Craig Anderson with the museum. He is well, it starts in a few minutes. He's not able to make it. Had some issues at his home. He called and apologized, but we'll get him back in again. We'll see what's going on for next week or a couple weeks down the road. But that'll be a nice local one. Do a quick sound check. All right, go ahead and say.
Yeah. So
Hello, test.
Here, we'll check it like this. But yeah, it'll be like a 3-minute delay if we test it the other way. But yeah, so we'll get him back in sometime and get him in to check it out. So we're just going to talk about general news. Still getting too much head out of the beer. Fill up a beer glass. That's what I get. I need bigger beer glasses. That's what I need. So if anyone knows anything about kegging beer, I've been getting way too much head. Give me a call. I'm going to be trying some smaller feeder lines to the taps. I'm only running at about 10 psi on the CO2. So we'll see. I've been cleaning my kegs real good and flushing the lines between kegs, but we'll see. I may have to do something else. Might be the taps. Maybe I have bad taps, and that'll bum me out. But yeah. So Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Speaking of beer, remember we're about 12 days away from the Utah Beer Festival.
I know that's coming up.
I hope everybody joins us Sunday.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. We'll go into the beer festival, try out all the beers, and then stumble back and report back to you.
So they'll have 200 beers. How many think you're going to go through?
Depends on how big they are.
They're 5 ounces, 5-ounce cups.
I need to go with thimbles so I can try them all and still stumble home. But yeah, so we don't have Craig Anderson from the Donna Reed Museum coming in. He had some emergency at his house that he had to deal with. And but we'll try to get him on in the next couple weeks. He's gonna tell us about the museum and a little bit about the story. Grantsville has a lot of interesting history, and not to break too deep into it, but there's a couple of notable people out of Grantsville that have done some pretty impressive things for the nation. And maybe we'll have to get into that sometime, the Blenders and the Palmers and that. But until we get into that, we're just going to have a general chat. We don't know if Dave's going to be able to jump on or not. He's in Brazil tonight. Him and his wife went down there to visit her family. And so if he can jump on, he'll jump on. If not, we'll wish him the best and hope everything's going good in Brazil. But, there's news going on around the nation. COVID's back, so we can expect to have some more economic disruptions going on because of that. And I imagine, hopefully, we've learned our lessons from last year on where to apply pressure and where the best reactions are and the best controls, and we can maybe make this go around a little seamless. I don't know. What do you think, Greg?
I think I think we've had lessons learned. I really don't think it's going to be that big a hit on the economy this time around. I think it becomes a question of the vaccinated and the unvaccinated.
Yeah, but that gets scary to make an apartheid class.
Well, it is. I mean, I heard the interesting argument that the vaccinated are now held hostage by the unvaccinated.
Kinda, but I seem to remember December and January, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and all the Democrats saying, if the vaccine comes out, we're not going to take it. We wouldn't trust it.
Well,
because it was put in place under Trump, and then it comes out they're in charge. And so I still kind of feel like the vaccine is a political measure because it hasn't stopped the spread. Vaccinated people are catching it and passing it on to other vaccinated people. So now I'm not saying anything bad about the vaccine, and there are studies that show that the vaccine has a positive impact on, if you get the virus, it lessens the impact of it and everything else. But it still feels very political on both sides.
Well, I agree, but there's a point, I believe, that we have to get past the political and get to, common sense. It seems, it's like 0.001% of somebody who's been vaccinated who has died recently because of COVID.
Yeah, but what was it of people who weren't vaccinated that died? It was
right now it's a lot. Everybody coming down with it that's dying is the unvaccinated.
Yeah, but what's the percent coming down with COVID? What's the percent that when COVID came through? I think it was 0.003 that died from it.
I don't know. I know 500,000 people have died.
Okay, that's still
and how many caught it? It'd be simple. You can divide the 500 by.
Was that 500,000 people just in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Okay, and so we've got 370 million people,
right? But not on how many have caught COVID.
Okay, and how many caught it? But the numbers, and I'm not arguing against the vax. I'm just arguing that somebody's getting rich off of it.
Well, that's capitalism. And that's what we support.
No, it's not capitalism when you're forced to do it.
Well,
capitalism has nothing to do when you're forced to do it.
The fact is,
it's authoritarianism.
Well, there's a point.
Mercantilism.
Who is supposed to protect the populace? Is there a point where the government is responsible to protect, or am I responsible to protect my neighbor? If I got a vaccine to protect my neighbor, is that a responsibility I should accept? When we gave kids smallpox and polio vaccines, and that was mandatory, was that wrong?
I don't know.
Because it eradicated the disease.
I don't know.
It is. I hear where you're coming from, but there's a point where, do we want to get back to normal? I want to get back to normal. I'd love the last couple months since I've had my shot, going out without my mask. And
so, what happens when the Echo variant comes out?
Well, hopefully, if we go to herd immunity, we won't get the Echo.
But this hasn't caused immunity in those who've been vaccinated.
Correct, because we have allowed the virus to deviate. If everybody would have took the vaccination in January, the Delta variant probably would not have evolved.
You think so?
Yeah.
The vaccine was available worldwide enough to do that?
Well, not worldwide, but at least within our borders.
So you think it wouldn't have made a lap back around?
I don't know. Listening to first point is we got to get people vaccinated, I believe.
Okay.
It's it's hard for me to watch. Somebody who has not vaccinated now getting on TV when they're in the hospital room saying, I should have got vaccinated. It's like, how many times do we have to see that when it's to the point of
I haven't
seen people, everybody saying, well, get vaccinated. And it's like, get vaccinated. Quit putting these people on. Get vaccinated and let's.
And if that doesn't fix it?
Well, the thing is, it could fix it. We know staying unvaccinated doesn't fix it. As a matter of fact, staying unvaccinated makes it worse.
And the reports coming out of the vaccine injuries?
On the what?
Vaccine injuries?
Well, I haven't seen that.
I believe it's called VAERS.
And what percentage is that? There's always, if you read any vaccine at the small print, will tell you 1 in 100,000.
Now, obviously,
So what do you think about employers requiring vaccines? They're paying
it's
you.
It's a voluntary association. Obviously, you and I politically are a little different.
Right.
I am extreme libertarian. I believe in voluntary associations and I don't believe in force. I'm not a fan of a government coming down and demanding that you get an injection, you know, for whatever. I'm not a fan of that. Sure, this one may be fine, but what about the next one or the next one? Or what happens when we are stripped dry of the pharmaceutical companies through our taxes paying for the Zulu variant 3 times a month vaccine because this one may not work? And I'm not saying that's where it's going, but that's why I don't like when you start down that path. That's where the end of that road is. Just like Joe Biden's eviction moratorium that he just laid down, unconstitutional, authoritarian. It's scary. Those landlords, where's their defense of property?
I have mixed feelings on that. I hear where you're coming from on it, because there's a point where
do they still have to pay their property taxes?
I agree. Do they?
You know, and then what? Then they don't pay their property taxes, but that tax bill still due. So we just spread that across the whole nation.
So I mean, I know they were going that route, but the question comes: so do we throw kids on the street for not because their parents didn't pay rent?
Yeah, but then we allowed governors. And governors, honestly, are the only ones that even come close to having rights to locking down areas. But we allow governors and mayors to just do forceful lockdowns, to have police go to businesses. You know, I mean, when do we start putting them in black overcoats and having them carry Mausers on the streets?
Well, I mean, that would be the extreme, but
that's where it's headed.
Well, same point could have been made during the 50s when they made kids get polio shots. I mean, you didn't go to school if you didn't get
could, yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I wasn't alive then, but I agree.
But it's the same argument is why do we, but the fact is 50 years from now, who has polio?
I don't know. Polio seems to pop up in Africa a bit, but
it's because they're not mandatory when they go to school. But a vaccine.
I don't know. But yes, and polio is a waterborne, and a lot of that argument comes from polio started dying off when we started cleaning our water. Would polio have died off just from us cleaning our water and removing our waste from the house in the way that we do now? That's a big question.
Okay, small.
I am obviously not a scientist on that. You know, it's like, you know, but
first, Dave, you're missing some good jalapeno beer. I mean, that is
it's pretty good if it wasn't so. But anyway, so I don't know. I don't know the efficacy of a vaccine that's pushed out super quick. And this is a question. I don't know.
Well, and I've heard that, but the thing is, the tools we got to push this out are so much advanced than they were in the 50s and 60s, where it took 10, 20 years. I mean, now we're talking DNA where they could break down the structure within a month of what the virus looked like. I mean, you're talking in the 50s and 60s, it was trial and error and trying to find something. Now that, you know, you break down the DNA, the chromosome structure of it, and you got the base of what you're fighting right away. So that's part of the reason it was so quick, and it is able to be so quick.
Doesn't that scare you a little more, though?
But to break it down, yeah, well, it's because that microchip goes into you.
I don't believe in a microchip or any of that. I mean, one, I don't know why they would need to microchip us. How many people do you know that don't carry a cell phone?
Point well taken.
I've got a microchip in my pocket all day, every day.
I hear you.
It is in front of my eyes more than a television or anything else. So I'm not concerned about a microchip. I'm concerned, and I'm not even concerned that they made a vaccine for illicit, you know, that they were grinding their hands. Now, granted, I'm sure that's being pushed because there's plenty of money to be made. But I think my concerns with it, my universal concerns, and a lot of people have different ones, is that what if What if there's effects that we don't know about yet?
Well,
We know it has. We do know that the studies show that it has increased miscarriages.
I see. I just saw something, gosh, a couple of days ago where that is not true.
Well, that was a study out. Okay,
Yeah,
you're right. I've read something
Right.
that said, just like I've got
Right.
something pulled up on the computer right now. I don't know who it's from. It says
Right.
something. I've read studies from some scientists that invented the mRNA platform that are against these vaccines. And then I've read studies by other scientists that were in on inventing the mRNA platform that say it's good. I don't know. That's the question. So can we still be allowed to be a little leery about it? I caught the virus, had a full on, well, maybe, because now they're saying that fast test read, the flu is the virus. That's coming out how many months later? Because my virus is last October. So now that just came out last month that, oh yeah, maybe that test we had wasn't 100% accurate. So maybe I just had the flu or a common cold or whatever. So now we're seeing that they roll out all these things super quick. And then in the end, they say, it wasn't quite what okay. And then another thing about the 500,000 people dying with COVID. That's how they're stating it now. They quit saying from COVID. They started saying with COVID.
Okay, so
people on terminal cancer die with COVID. People in motorcycle accidents died with COVID. A kid in Colorado, in Denver, died from a gunshot wound with COVID.
Okay, so maybe what 1 to 3% of it.
How much do you know? 1, 2, 3%.
Well,
how much do you know is from COVID specifically killed him?
All I know is when I watch TV or when I'm screening the internet or when I'm reading articles and I see medical professionals who I would think would be the front line on this, and they're saying our hospitals are getting filled again.
But our hospitals never got filled the first time.
Well,
they laid people off in hospitals
at the first, but it
was something like 416,000 people got laid off.
Well, according to the doctors and nurses I'm seeing, they're exhausted, and they keep saying, "Please get the."
Then they need to quit laying people off.
They laid them off in April of 2000. I bet you in October of 2000, people weren't laid off. I bet you in 2000, when that was peaking, I bet, and I agree, there was missteps all along this.
Yes,
I mean we were caught, and the way the federal government acted, the way some governors acted, I agree, we got caught, and it's been trial and error. But hopefully, we're learning from those trial and errors.
Okay. We do have some and hopefully we are. Now, is it bad if someone wants to sit back and say, maybe I'll let this vaccine ride around in other people for a year or 2 years?
If I'm all
because you can't, if they poison you, right? If they give you the vaccine has killed people. Don't know how many, don't know if it's a substantial amount. But if the vaccine kills you, you can't sue. Your family can't sue. Your family can't gain redress for that.
Okay, so I'm all for you.
What if the vaccine paralyzed me?
Well, they're
okay.
In all vaccines,
then where do I go? Where do I go to continue to pay to live?
Social Security. I mean, you get disability.
I'll get my $450 a month.
I really don't think everybody's going to turn their back and say,
that's why I'm saying don't force.
But being a man of odds, okay, you see 10 people here who might have had an adverse reaction.
I played the odds and caught that bastard.
And you think you caught it.
Okay, yeah, I played the odds, and the government told me I caught it because it was the state who
and
called
here's
and
the
told
odds
me I
of
caught
people
it.
being sick people laying in the hospital, people having the odds of the vaccination versus the odds of not the vaccination.
It was less than 1% of people that got sick went to the hospital. And of that, and that's when because they closed down all the rest of the hospital. They quit treating cancer, they quit treating all that crap.
And you would agree, the medical personnel probably are a little more experts than us. I mean, I would hope a doctor would be.
David joined.
Oh, we got David. Sure.
Look at it is David.
All right. So
hey guys.
Hey, cover me up, David. You look better.
Yeah, we're gonna have to slide in a little closer so that we can all come on. How's Brazil? We're just arguing here about forcing vaccines on the populace. Slide into the.
I bet you wouldn't wait. I'm gonna get a refill.
Oh yeah. So how are things down there?
They are they're not bad. They're not as bad as everyone would think they are. It's very political right now because next year is election season. So I got to join a rally. That was interesting.
It's us last year.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yay.
And it's the same players. It really is. It's one guy against the system, and the system is well armed. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. What do you do, right?
You enjoy the ride, Jared. You enjoy the ride.
Yeah, you have to. I'm going to try a different screen. Oh, that's much better.
That's good.
All right. But anyway, so we were just arguing about the efficacy of forcing vaccines on the populace.
Wait, first, how's the missus?
Oh, yeah.
Well, she's out right now with the ladies. I just got back from there's a little bar downstairs, and they're eating, finger fried foods and enjoying fresh beers and tropical drinks. There's like 4 ladies enjoying themselves, and I stepped away for the podcast, right?
Oh my God. You got your priorities.
Good. Yeah. Well, the old man, I don't know if you heard, but the old man couldn't come on tonight. He had some problems at his house. So we'll try to get him in the next couple weeks. So tonight it's just a little bit of BS, drink some beer, and then close it down. But yeah. So we were chatting about efficacy of forcing vaccines on people.
Yeah. Well, they're not quite fully vaccinated here in Brazil, so I don't know where that's going to be, but it's close. I mean, everyone's pretty mask disciplined here. I'm in a 12-story building right now, and you have to wear your mask in the building, otherwise the owner of the residency gets a ticket. So that's where they are kind of socially here. But as soon as you get into the street, everyone takes it off.
So it's enforced where it can be, and then where it can't be, it's not.
Yeah, it's very similar to where we are in the States, I think.
Yeah. And I think we're just gonna. I hope that we don't end up like we were last year, but I think we're gonna go similar.
Are the numbers going up in America right now, or
they're shooting up?
I haven't a clue.
They're shooting up. It's getting down. It's when they show the map, everybody's red except for, I think, Nebraska or something like that.
I don't know. I'll look it up real quick.
So is the variant down there, or is it
is the what?
The Delta variant?
Well, yeah, I think the Delta variant actually originated from here.
Oh, is that right?
I think so. I know it was really heavy up north, and it worked its way down and out. So now it's in the States. So maybe if this vaccine does work, this is going to be the kind of the test pilot for it. If the vaccine works, people aren't going to drop dead like they did in Brazil. And there were a lot of people dropping dead from this Delta variant here. But
when you got
see what happens.
Did they screen you, or when you got off the plane, or you just walked right into the?
No, they require a test. They require the one where they break down your genetic DNA and look for the variants of coronavirus. And you got 3 days to get here after the test results come back negative. And then everywhere there's a large public gathering, like shopping malls and things like that, there seems to be an EMT armed with some sort of kind of like an infrared temperature gauge, watching the population go in and out. So they are taking some pretty serious precautions, I guess, for a South American country. But I still think the best way to protect yourself from this is to probably get the vaccine.
Over 1,000 cases in Utah today, it says. I'm looking at the 1,096 confirmed cases. Our 7-day average is 906 cases a day. Deaths, we are at 8 today. 5 15 0. Yeah.
And comparatively, I think that's about the same as it was back when the original coronavirus hit us, right?
With the exception is they're getting younger. I mean, it is hitting younger.
Yes, that is a fact. That is a fact. We've already lost some family members, and my wife's family, younger than me. It's sad.
Yep. But what are your thoughts on forced vaccines?
I don't know how you would do that. How do you force that? The only way they could track it is putting a microchip in us. That's the only way I could think about tracking it.
Well, we don't want to bring microchips into the discussion.
Well, they're talking the military is going to get vaccinated, which, I mean, anybody who's been in, we've been forced vaccinated before. I mean,
Yeah.
I can remember.
Yeah, the military will be forced vaxxed on this, I'm sure. But the thing is, when you talk about forced vax, how do you prove it? Because originally, the only thing that I received that says I've been vaccinated was this card, and it had 2 dates on it when I got one shot and the other. And that could be easily forged. It's not like we can't print our own cards in America.
That's the thing. I think if businesses move towards making the vaccination, at first we'll see a spike in just homemade cards, and then those will be found out. Then there'll be a trackable card with the serial and everything else, and then you'll see a black market open up.
I mean, honestly, if this is going to go on and on and on, maybe a preemptive strike against China would just be the most efficient way to take care of this. Someone's got to win.
The cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean,
it's out of the bag. Whatever we do, it's not going to stop it. Even if you blame China, even if you blame all that industry, it's not going to stop that. It's already here and it's out and about. My question is you see this vaccine come out. Now they're saying, remember, first it was 1 shot, and then within 2 months it got up to 2 shots. Now they're talking about a 3rd shot. At first they're talking about a 3rd shot for people over 65. Delta variant comes out. Now there's a 3rd shot being considered for everybody. And then we're going to get an echo variant. And then what then? This will become an annual flu shot. But instead of a voluntary flu shot, it'll be, if you want to consider yourself still vaccinated and be able to comport yourself in civilized society, you've got to go get this shot. And then we give guys, black trench coats, bucket helmets, and Mausers, and they papers please you out on the street.
Yeah, I mean, again, though, I'd like to reiterate, this isn't our government's doing, they're trying to react to the attack that they've received from another government. And after they create this virus, they've proven their effectiveness, and they've proven the fact that this methodology works. Why wouldn't they create another virus?
Well, here's
I
the
mean,
rub. Parts of our government were involved in creating this virus. The virus was created on contract for parts of our government.
yeah, and that's the complicated
That's
part.
the bad thing. So do we go after China where they worked on contract for the NIH?
Well, a lot of the times when they create a virus, they create it so they learn how to defend against it. I mean, that's what Dugway was known to be doing. I mean, there's a reason why it could have been created.
Dugway never created viruses to defend. Dugway took viruses that existed, and like anthrax existed before Baker Lab.
So, but so you're saying they never created a virus?
As far as I know, they didn't.
Because I've heard in that life science building or whatever, the one that's out there.
Yeah, Baker Lab.
Yeah, that is a little different. And it makes sense. You have to create something to be able to defend against it.
They have bubonic plague. They have anthrax out there. They have all sorts of stuff.
But
now that Baker Lab is a level 3. It's not like a level 4, like the CDC in Atlanta or whatnot. You can't have something that's contagious out there that's going to spread to the world and infect people. It's not going to hold an Ebola virus.
Yeah, so, that's why we go to Wuhan and do it.
Right. Well, no, and Minneapolis or something. Something where back in Maryland or something that I'm thinking of is one. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah,
but the fact. Okay, so it's here. The question is how to beat it. See, now I don't really mean mandatory, but I do think if a business says, "Hey, vaccinated people, show your card. You come in. Unvaccinated."
I'm fine
over there.
I'm fine.
Kind of like the old smoker days. You guys get this little part of the restaurant, and I get this big part of the restaurant.
I'm fine with businesses doing that because I believe in private property.
Okay, yeah. So
I'm not fine with governors doing that. I'm not fine with mayors doing that. I'm not fine with senators, with congressmen, with any of that. I'm fine with businesses doing that because that's a part of private property.
Okay, so we're fine with the military doing it, right? Because I mean, they got
now the military. I think if they're going to do a forced vaccination on a test vaccination, they need to come out and say, okay, we're vaccinating now. If you've got this much time in, like say you got 2 years left of a 4-year enlistment. They can say, okay, you can finish out, because it would take the military, honestly, 2 years to vaccine well, they could do it in a week, but it'd take them forever. And they would say, I would make it so that it's a voluntary basis. If you want to re-up, you're gonna have to do this vaccination. If you do not want to do this, you can finish up, call it whatever time you want. You finish out your time and then you get out.
The military is going to get vaccinated, like it or not. They're going to get vaccinated.
It's kind of like when I was HIV tested in the military. I mean, that came fast. I wasn't given an option. Hey, you're going to be tested or not.
Yeah, but they're extracting something from you. They're not putting anything in you.
Oh, I would argue the difference. I mean, it'd be
the anthrax. I mean, anthrax. They put how many anthrax shots did we get?
That's right. When you were going to Middle East, you were getting the anthrax.
Yeah.
Desert Storm.
Yeah.
There was no question.
But there's a funny reason. They're not giving that anthrax shot to any civilian.
Yeah, because they weren't.
Well, I disagree with that. I think they will give it to civilians that probably work in, I don't know, maybe Dugway.
Right. Well, the federal government.
I worked at Dugway. Never got the shot.
I'm sure they give it.
No, I was there. Never got it. I was there when they had anthrax at Baker Lab.
Well, because there was no threat of anthrax. During Desert Storm, there's a threat of anthrax, and if you were going to be deployed, you were getting the shot. There was no option.
Yeah, sure, the guy's getting deployed. Yeah, but at Dugway, no.
So, I mean, so the federal government, federal employees, mandatory. I mean,
But why hasn't the military stepped up and done that yet?
Done what?
Made that vaccine mandatory yet?
I'm sure give it time. I mean, everyone I'm sure is already
The one place
offered
the
the
government
option.
has ultimate control, and I think I don't know why. Could it be because the FDA hasn't given it full clearance yet?
no.
Well, whether it's cleared or not, they're not getting sued for any negligence.
No, nobody's going to get sued. But
So
I would think the military, I mean,
I think in May we had a false hope. I mean, we really did. Everybody got the vaccine. You know, we were going back to normalcy. Businesses were open, and there was kind of a false hope. This Delta thing has thrown us back into reality. Because I'm telling you, like I said, when I got it in May, people going to the store, people starting to do stuff, starting to go to the movies. We kind of let the guard down on this, but now. So that's part of the reason I don't think they went to force vaccination. Part of the reason is we were hoping that people would use what I would say kind of common sense and go get it.
well, I'm going to say that, I'm still 50-50 on it. We don't know what the results of this vaccine is in another year or two. So, I mean, I understand the hesitancy. It's not like we didn't
vaccine
give
didn't even
syphilis to black people in Tuskegee, right? I mean, the
bingo.
government's not your friend.
Bingo.
But then,
I mean, the vaccine didn't even make it a year before it was beat.
well, that's science. I mean, that's the evolution
Well,
of a
let them
virus.
do the science on animals.
Well,
Let them do the science on something else.
and
don't push the science
and
out
that's
on the
good
mass
for
public.
1950s and 1960s. Now, when we can break down a virus to its DNA structure, we are 20 years ahead than we were in the 50s and 60s. I mean, 60 Minutes put out a great piece on how they were able to break that down within a month. And that's a huge plus of why it went so fast.
Yeah, the FDA prolongs these vaccinations and medicines to the point where it's almost ludicrous now. We're killing more people by allowing the government to prolong medicines and vaccinations than we are saving them from someone had a fucking peanut allergy to the shot, it really, I think we've swung the pendulum so far in the direction of the FDA that we are almost to the point of negligence with our testing. We've made it so expensive that most companies won't even bother to try to cure some diseases that don't have X amount of infected patients. When they can cure a lot of diseases, but the profit margins have to be there for them to do.
Mhm.
And
Or if
because of the
profits-
FDA testing, it's not feasible.
or if the profits are better if the disease remains.
Yeah, I'm still thinking that the free market system would somehow penetrate that theory, because if there's a buck to be made by somebody's gonna make it. I mean, yeah, I see your point, but eventually, it was like the AM and the FM radio. They tried to stall the FM radio for as long as they could so that they could sell all the AM radios, but eventually it comes out.
Yep. Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm not anti-vax. I had COVID, and then I watched my buddies who got the vax, and they looked like they fared a lot worse than I did when I had COVID, and all they had was the vaccine. They were sick longer. They were worse sick. They were pretty tore up. And so, and then I lean on the side of I want to sit and watch and see how it affects the populace. I want to sit back and see, at least give it a 2-year term and see how it does for 2 years. And then again, what if you've got to get this vax and then a third shot? And then they say, okay, you got to have a fourth booster and then a quarterly booster, because so far we're 3/4 into the year and they're talking about a third shot. So it sounds like you're going to have to get your Wu flu shot 4 times a year. You know, what if in 2 years they actually come up with a vaccine? And then why wasn't the AstraZeneca vaccine cleared over here? You know, when it's not an mRNA vaccine, it's a vaccine of the virus. Why won't they let that in over here?
Yeah, I think there's going to be conspiracies for generations to come on this one.
Yep.
But I judging by the reaction of Donald Trump and the Democratic Party in the beginning of the infection of America, I mean, both parties were like, you know, hey, come to Chinatown, it's perfectly fine over here at one point. So it doesn't seem like our political parties were involved with the infection of this virus around the world, but they're definitely going to probably capitalize on however they can politically the event itself as it rolls out. But again, judging by the reactions of our political leaders in the beginning, I don't think it was intentional on their part to release this virus on us. Yes, I do believe we were involved with funding Wuhan. There's obvious information out there that anyone can extract from the internet that shows where the funding came from and how much it was. We were definitely negligent in funding this gain of function research, but ultimately in the end, I mean, a snake is a snake. If you give China a weapon, they're eventually going to want to implement it into their program of world domination somehow.
Well, there's your conspiracy. Do you think that when our bureaucrats that cleared to have China test on that, do you think they did that knowing what was going to happen? That's where the conspiracy lies.
And again, judging by their performance in the beginning of the epidemic, I would say no. I mean, Nancy Pelosi was out there in Chinatown.
I didn't say
hey,
our
look, it's perfectly fine.
politicians. I said our bureaucrats.
You mean like deep state kind of shit?
I mean, like the NIH boys.
Yeah, and we'll never know that. I mean, not in our lifetime.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of leaning really toward the Wuhan lab thing, Siri, but it's not like China let it go on purpose. You know, China got kicked in the ass with this virus too. It got out of the lab. I mean, and eventually it will get to how it got out. You know, it wasn't like, oh, let's
remember China fared pretty good on it because they have an authoritarian state that welded people into their houses.
Well, Greg, let me give this theory to you though. They blocked off Wuhan flights. Didn't they block off the domestic flights? But they allowed the internationals.
Yep, domestic flights from Wuhan. So you couldn't fly from Wuhan to Beijing.
Right.
But you could fly from Wuhan to Hawaii.
Right. I mean,
to LA.
Wow, that's plus China, I mean, they got caught with their pants down too. They were trying to hide it.
Now let me ask you another question. Now, if I was to pose this, if I was China and I was to do this, I wouldn't do it as a military attack. I would do it as an economic attack, and it worked. It set us back 10 years, and it didn't stop them at all.
I don't know if it didn't stop them. I mean, it's their supply chain is gone. I mean, they lost a whole year of production over there.
Right now, the government that was on par to stop them from taking Taiwan is gone now. This new government doesn't seem to be quite as ambitious in that. This government that was the old government that had taken steps to try to draw our corporations back to the U.S. is gone. This new government backfilled all of those evil things that he did to bring corporations back here, and they're back in business. There's no chance that any of those corporations over there are going to come back now. No chance.
I think there was mistakes made all the way.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I really think that we're going to find. I mean, I'm reading the book. I Can Handle It, and it's pretty interesting to see how the scientists were begging over here for someone to take action in January, February, March, and everybody was like turning their like it would go away.
What
I mean, I
action
think-
did you want them to take though? Because I would
Well-
argue I would rather see. I honestly say I would rather see a 10% loss rate than to live in an authoritarian state, even if I'm of that loss.
Well, and see, we go
And that's
and
my
s-
personal
well,
leanings.
authority in state for what? For 2 months? I
You
mean,
think,
or
do you
for
think
permanent?
that they give it back once they've taken it?
You
Did they
know,
give it back in
I
1913 after they took it?
What did they take in 1913?
Well, they took your money.
With an income tax.
No, with the Federal Reserve Act.
Okay.
And
I
then
mean,
and then in
so
and the income tax when it first came out at the start of World War I, we're just going to tax the top 1% to pay for this. And where are we at now?
about 15-20%.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all you pay
For
in
Fed.
taxes.
I'll pay about 30 if you count everything else, but
Oh, I'll bet I pay upwards of 45.
yeah, but you got that high income.
yeah, I got that. High. But no, seriously.
Dave, he probably
But
pays
see
70.
when they take
Wow.
that, they
See,
never give it back. Freedoms have to be fought back.
See, I disagree with this government being anti-population, and the government is made of people just like me. It's not like they're a superficial group and these people sit in this black room and decide how they're going to screw the populace. I honestly believe the government is here to serve me.
Oh.
Now, I might not look like the way they act. I would agree. They should have locked down in February all flights. All flights is what they wanted to lock down, because it was kind of stupid just to lock down for China when you have Chinese visiting Europe and European flights coming through. So
I think they wanted to give people the opportunity to get back home before they locked the whole system down.
but they knew
And
once that cruise ship hit, and it was interesting to hear the scientists were begging people to somebody in the government take action. But at the time, Trump had just made the China deal with trade, and he didn't want to damage that. But yeah, I think we should have locked down totally as fast as we could and live. Maybe it's kind of hard to say, just we always have to go on. Sometimes we sacrifice. We sacrificed during World War II. We lost freedoms. We lost a lot of freedoms in World War II, but we gained those back. I mean, so it's.
Well, I know in the Roman Empire, when they had a crisis, they would elect a dictator for 6 months. Let me ask you this: if Trump offered to lock us down through a dictatorship for 6 months, would you have wanted that?
It would. Well, it's easy to, and I agree. It's easy to Monday quarterback. This is this. This is what. This is why I think we're better armed this time around with the reaction. I don't think we're going to lock down the economy like we did. We saw the what happened out of it.
Well, Utah didn't lock down, and now we're the number one state for growth. I want to read about that guy sitting in dark rooms. This real quick. This is declassified information. This was in the early 60s, 1962. It's called Operation Northwoods. This was the Joint Chiefs of Staff sent this to JFK's desk. Some of the ideas in here. Now, this was them trying to get war with Fidel Castro,
Right.
who had just taken control 3 years earlier. A couple of things they wanted to do. They wanted to provocate the U.S. into war. They wanted to lie to the populace to get us to voluntarily go to war. They wanted to, one of the ideas was to hijack a remote control plane or whatever and then blow it up over Miami. Another floated thought was to hijack an actual plane and say that, Fidel people did it. These are the people that sit in dark rooms.
This was our military branch trying to make us go to war. Thank God we had a civilian leader who stood up to
I
him
agree.
and would not do it. That's
I
the check
agree.
and balances.
Thank God we had JFK in there.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
I've heard that we made a negotiation with the Russians that if we leave Cuba alone, they won't do what they were doing with their nuclear weapons in Cuba. So we actually sold out the Bay of Pigs insurgents, and from that point on,
Yeah, there was
left them alone.
But there was also the agreement that Russia would not move on Turkey. We would give them Cuba, but they would leave Turkey all alone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a give and take. It was a negotiation, and it avoided World War III.
It did. No, but I'm not arguing the point of whether we had, handshakes across the Atlantic and the Pacific. I'm just saying that bureaucrats in the government will sit in dark rooms. Another one just came out. The Governor Whitmer kidnapping plot. There were 18 people involved in that.
That's the one up in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of those 18 people involved in that plot, 12 of them were FBI informants. The leader of the group was an FBI informant. The guy who put the ideas in the heads of everyone were FBI informants. The FBI agent in charge is now fired from the FBI because apparently after he was done at a swingers club with his wife, she had done or not done something there to please him, so he beat the crap out of her. So he's got charges pressed for domestic violence. Now, if you get domestic violence charges pressed, you can't carry a firearm. Can't carry a firearm, you can no longer be an FBI agent. Our government isn't the creepiest, but it's creepy.
Well, there's certain elements, and of course, check and balances. That he got caught.
The check and balances didn't control that.
Well,
how long did that go on? How long did they build something up like that and it probably pick up guys with low mental acuity just so the FBI can say, look, we foiled a plot?
The FBI has to sell themselves to the public and make themselves valid for existence.
It reminds me of the ATF in Waco or the ATF in Ruby Ridge and the FBI.
Those operations are going to continue on if society isn't providing them opportunities to practice their trades. So, I mean, it kind of doesn't really surprise me.
The 92 World Trade Center bombing. That's an interesting one if you want to look into some creepy government stuff. So would I trust our government? Sorry, no, I don't.
Okay. And I agree. Our government
and I didn't trust it.
And I agree. They're sometimes you have to be creepy. I mean, but again,
when do you have to be creepy?
The story is coming out.
When do you have to be creepy? When do you have to be a shady authoritarian government to try to manipulate power? When?
Well, our CIA overseas dealing with the
I'm not at all satisfied with 90% of what they do, but when do you have to be creepy?
I'm just saying, when you're dealing with creepy governments. See, the difference is,
when you're fomenting strife over there and making a permanent enemy like Iran?
So we shouldn't have a CIA?
I'd be down for the Defense Intelligence Agency, Naval Intelligence, and Army Intelligence manhandling all of their job.
Army
and the State Department.
Is it? So
I'd be down for that.
And the FBI? Should we disband FBI?
There's nothing in our Constitution that says we have armed federal officers. I'd be down with Sheriff's Department and local police department, state troopers manhandling their job.
Okay. I mean, that's your point. I mean, I think the FBI overall, they might 5-10% might have done something wrong. Because you got if you look in the past what the FBI did under Hoover, I agree that was pretty shameful.
Have you ever heard
they evolved?
Have you ever heard of Blackstone's Law?
I know he did the law books.
It's better that 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man.
Hey, I
found
agree
guilty.
totally with that.
There you go. And that's it.
No, Greg, when you say the FBI evolved from when Hoover was in charge, do you mean they just got better at hiding themselves? Because I
don't
really
know.
think that's probably where they focused their attention.
Yeah, they learned a
well,
lesson.
Well, from spying on their own people. I mean, when you were 99.9% white in the 60s and trying to stop the movement the way they did.
So now what movement are they trying to stop using the exact same tactics?
What movement?
I'm just asking.
I don't know.
Because they're using the exact same tactics.
No, they're not.
As they did during COINTELPRO.
I would disagree with that. They're using the same exact tactics.
Yeah.
Like what? Give an example, Jared.
Well, like fomenting unrest within a group, trying to drive that group to commit actions. Granted, they haven't started a civil war between the different coasts of one group. And I think that's because there isn't a group to do that. But they did start a civil war between the Black Panthers that went to shooting.
So the FBI should not have infiltrated the Ku Klux Klan in the 60s or 70s.
Why?
Well, one reason was because they beat Timmett to a 14-year-old kid to death. And they bombed a church.
His name is Emmett Till.
Okay.
The Ku Klux Klan didn't beat him. A specific man.
Oh my God!
Beat
now,
him.
yeah, was he a member of the Ku Klux Klan?
I don't care.
How can you defend that at all? Now, if you're going to say
I wanted that guy. Was
the Ku Klux Klan a good group?
No.
Are you saying they're good? Should they have been infiltrated? They bombed churches. Oh, they didn't bomb churches. 4 guys bombed churches. Are you saying that there's no
find the guy and you charge him? The reason you don't want law enforcement getting their hands dirty in that is because then they become compartment to it.
Oh, well.
You could say the same with Black Lives Matters, though, too. I mean, like most of those guys, they don't want to cause violence. They just want to peacefully protest and take a knee or something.
I don't like the Ku Klux Klan at all. And the guy who killed Emmett Till, I think he should have been hung, but he got off because he had a friendly sheriff. He had a white supremacist sheriff that got him.
Who was
off.
a member of the Ku Klux Klan?
Sure. I don't know.
I do know.
I do know
the story.
I don't care.
But I do care.
But by them infiltrating that, did they stop anything else?
They stopped the group. Yeah, they did. They stopped the Ku Klux Klan.
Stopped them from doing what?
Well,
churches still got bombed.
I didn't see one around here lately. Have you?
Klan's never been up here.
The Klan had a big dealing in Utah.
In Utah?
Oh, yeah. In the 20s.
My last statistic on the Ku Klux Klan was like they had 5,000 members across the country.
Yeah, and 3,000 of them are FBI agents and ATF agents pointing at each other, just like every other radical group.
But the Communist Party, on the other hand, I mean, they've infiltrated us.
Yeah. So. Yeah. If you get the chance, look up the Venona papers. That's an interesting read.
But, I don't know if a group is going to advocate violence. And
I like charging crimes because like with this Whitmer case, like with Ruby Ridge, like with Waco's abhorrent. How many of something like 28 children were murdered there.
Well, I agree.
So that the ATF could try to gain funding.
I don't know if it was try to gain funding.
They were about to be shut down by Congress. Congress was voting in like a month to decrease their funding.
Anybody who's been involved with Waco has said that was a mistake and there should have been handled different. Yeah. I don't think it was a conspiracy. Say, hey, we need to save our funding. Let's go kill 28 kids.
So when you read these papers about the Whitmer case,
and I'm going to go read them, Jared.
Here's the interesting part.
You're the expert right now because I have not looked at it that bad.
A guy joined. It was a Facebook meme group to start with, and they would just meme back and forth. Whitmer's a douchebag. She's locking us down. All that stuff. Well, the guy who he was a veteran of the Middle East. He comes back and gets a bug in his craw, And so he calls the police. Police ties him into the FBI, and the FBI says, okay, infiltrate this and start fomenting him. In the end, the guy who mentioned the kidnapping was an informant. The guy who started the kidnapping, the guy who did all their tactical training. Before that, they weren't out doing tactical training. They were just a group of guys that memed with each other, was an FBI informant. The guy who suggested blowing up the bridge to block off reinforcements coming to Whitmer Aids, the FBI informant, all of that. 18 guys were picked up for that. 12 of them were FBI informants.
Okay. And is this come out in court, or is this
just insane? Yeah, it's coming out in court.
It hasn't come out in court, or is it just an opinion that we're reading?
No, it's come out in court right now.
Okay. All right. I'll look at it when I get a chance.
But you got to understand, every government agency wants to feel relevant, and they're willing to go to any.
I don't think relevancy is what it is. They want money.
Okay, that's what I mean. Is they want to be funded, they want to exist, they want to continue on. And you have groups that have so much power over the population, and they want to be relevant. So they're going to exercise every capacity that they have to maintain their relevancy. That's just a natural biological instinct for anyone earning resources to provide for their family. I get that. But, you know, the only way to really combat that is to make everyone equal in terms of the capacity for them to carry a gun or a weapon of some sort, equivalent to whatever their government is able to use upon them. And it all basically comes down to the human right of being equal to the government as a citizen.
Not just that, but I think you make government, especially government that's armed, that can exercise the authority of violence over the populace. You make it small and local. I don't think there should be armed people out there patrolling, honestly, in my opinion, beyond the sheriff. I think the sheriff should be the armed authority, and there's sheriffs spread across every county, and that should be your armed authority. And if the federal government needs to have arms brought for their assistance, they contact that local sheriff and do that. They shouldn't have an FBI or any of that. I mean, like the Secret Service. The Secret Service, they were designed, their initial job was just to track counterfeit money. That is their job. It isn't defending the president. It isn't any of that. That should be a job that can be done for the sheriff wherever the president is traveling to. But I don't think we need to have a national police or a federal police. The sheriff should be your largest.
So based on that, the bombing of the church would have never gotten convicted because the sheriff was always in charge, right?
You know what?
There's no oversight.
That's a good point. You know what? You're correct, except in the fact that I don't see why there wouldn't be a federal justice department. There doesn't need to be armed officers.
Because it took 30 years before they were brought up in trial again, and they brought on federal trial because they were free on state.
Actually,
charges.
I don't think the guy who did it was brought on trial. I think he'd already died. I think it was his girlfriend that Emmett supposedly, which I don't believe he did, whistled at.
Right. Well,
and I agree. No, I'm with you on the Emmett case. I'm completely with you on
the Alabama bombing.
You're right. I'm completely with you on those.
So if you give a sheriff full power, he's kind of like a dictator.
Sure. I believe he is. But that's also where that county should die. It should economically die. Where if I was living in a corrupt county and it was doing things like that, my first plan, be it I'm a target of that sheriff or not a target of that sheriff, would be to be planning my move, planning how I leave that county, and let all of the inbreeding bad people, they can go there and build their own little happy, whatever state they want. But I will be planning my exit. And then if we do need the federal government to come down on them, there is a way that they can call up National Guard or military. A governor can call in the National Guard on that level to deal with that issue. But I do not like when we have federal officers like right now, the National Police Department from the nation's capital, Capitol Police, are starting to build these little centers. They're building one in Florida right now in San Francisco. What is that going to turn into in the future? Is that going to be a usurpation of your local government? Right now, it may be comfortable for you because your political party's in power. But remember, your political party may not always be in power. So whatever powers you give to them now, the next guy that you may not like is going to inherit those powers. And I've been trying to tell people this all the way back in George W. Bush. Whatever powers you take is going to be given to someone you don't like.
Well, I agree. I mean, I agree with. You always have to look out for the other side being in power. We've seen what 4 years of power in the justice system does, but I still don't get the point.
Go on, tell us what 4 years of power in a justice system has done.
Well, where you go into a justice and telling them, hey, just tell them we got the votes. I'll take it from there. I mean, tell them that the voting was wrong. But
the other side did that for 4 years. Russia.
Okay. And I still believe Russia was involved, and most people do that.
Most people believe that.
You don't think Putin tried to influence? It's out.
Oh, I'm sure Putin tried to influence,
just
like he tried to influence everyone, just like we influence everyone else's. I'm sure foreign governments do nothing but try to influence.
And should we?
We do know that Russia spent, what was it, $114,000 on Facebook putting ads in. Now, would you call that illegal influence?
I would, yeah. A foreign government, yeah. If a foreign government took an active role and bought.
And what about when our government does that? The CIA, which you were just standing up for.
Okay, so they do.
Which does it
for
non-stop.
American interest.
Okay, so it's only illegal when someone else does it for their interest.
Yeah.
But when we do it, it's okay.
Our government has to take a role to protect ourselves. I mean, we do.
Okay, but when a government, another government does it to protect themselves. When you put on a military
uniform and you were given an order, did you say, no, I'm not doing that order because I was against it, or did you do it?
Dude, I was 17.
I was 40. I was 40 and I did it. You know why? Because I took an oath to defend.
That's fine. But no, what I'm asking you right now is, do you look at it as only illegal if it's coming your way?
I'll tell you what, I think, and I will go this, and I take pride. I think we are above of everybody else. I think the common goal, the shining light on the pillar of this country, is a beacon that all the world shows. So,
what are those beacons do you think that put us above?
Jared, here's the difference is I love this country. I love the people that work. But the see is, I am not going to go to the point is, what do you think? Are you going to say, well, what about this? I think we have freedom.
Well, I'm not trying to argue with you.
Well, you're not.
I'm getting you to dig down.
Okay.
What do you think makes us better than other nations?
Freedom, or we try to be free. I mean, we have a court system that might take a while.
And it might get things wrong.
I look at it, right, and it's like you're going to tell me we want to go back, and I'm going to say, Jared, when do we want to go back? What times are getting bad, right? Times are getting bad.
Okay.
When was this country so good that we want to go back to this Western chauvinistic area? What is so bad right now where in the 50s, 60s, or 70s it was better that we want to go back?
You could buy a house on a gas station attendant wage.
That's a good point.
Okay, but can you buy a house
on a gas attendant?
So
gas station attendant wage. You could buy a house.
Okay. Because that's the only point that's better from here. I mean, the houses ain't better now, are they? The cars, you can drive coast to coast. Most people in the 50s, 60s didn't leave 100 miles from their home.
You're right. Of course, back then you could buy a car without having to get a loan with relative ease. Nowadays, the average car loan is 7 years.
Well, you still can buy a car. You set your standard of wanting to buy that level car, but you can buy a car for cash.
Okay.
And I would say you could buy a better car than you could. Well, maybe not.
Well, of course,
Right.
technology advance. You're arguing
Right.
technological advance,
Well,
but I'm arguing
I'm also arguing social advance. Now, I would agree
there is some social advance.
there was some type of skin color might have gone with that house to where you bought it with in the 50s, 60s on the gas attendant wage.
I agree. You're just looking at it from that point, and I agree with
And
you.
that's a big point.
I agree with you. I'm anti. I am on a personal level anti-racist. I am. I have personal reasons for being anti-racist, and I have reasons that I want that liberty, the same exact liberty that I want for myself. I want for everybody.
Okay. And so you would agree that we evolved from the 50s or 60s, and we're better where we're at than we were
in
back
some
then.
in some ways, we are better.
In what ways aren't we in that way?
You can't buy a house on a gas station attendant.
No,
you
I'm
know what? You
talking
can't.
race. I'm talking race. You said there's some ways. I want to know any way that we're not better
Oh,
from the 50s or 60s.
On race,
On
probably
race.
depends on where you were, but I would suggest that we're better in almost every way on race.
Okay. And so that's where
Is that the only gauge you want to measure life on?
And I would no, there's economics. I mean, there's
because that
going to
buying
school.
a house
you know what?
affects
I would say race and
African Americans
and-
as well back
right.
then to now.
racial.
How about Detroit
sex.
being alive?
Detroit has gone through problems.
How about Baltimore being alive?
Okay.
How about Detroit was the number one city in 61. It was the number one city in the world.
Okay, and why isn't it now? Because the economy has shifted from a manufacturing, correct?
And they taxed manufacturers out. Those manufacturers could have and would have been dynamic, but they taxed them out. And it was a Republican governor and Democrat mayors, and it's been Democrat ever since. And you argue that the Republicans are always against African Americans or
I didn't say
blacks or
that.
whatever.
You never.
Okay, you're right. You
I
did
did
not.
not say
But
that.
that's argued. But every place that's doing the worst is Democrat run and has been for
Okay,
decades.
what's doing the worst again? What's doing the
Baltimore,
worst?
highest kill ratio, lowest economics, lowest growth, less ability to move up, less ability to buy a house, less ability to survive, less ability
Okay, can
to
we
not
pull
be
that
on the
up?
government dole.
I mean, I don't. Okay.
What should we look? Worst cities to live in, most dangerous
Well,
cities.
no, I don't know.
How
I
do
don't
you
know.
want to look at it?
Well, I'm saying overall as a country, we're better than we were.
Highest
You're
kill
pointing-
ratio.
We're going back to a point. What about this? What about Baltimore? What about Salt Lake? Salt Lake's a nice place. What about
Yeah, Salt Lake
California? I like California. California, I've read is booming economically. You're going to say no, it's not.
Let's look it up.
I mean, they're
Well, would California be booming if it wasn't bailed out by the federal government, though?
Bingo.
would it? The whole country's been bailed out.
Has it? I don't think Utah has.
Well, I think everybody got the stimulus check, don't you?
Nobody
I mean, that
was
bailed out.
left out of the stimulus check. No, so that's an equal opportunity event, I suppose. But when you've racked up tons of debt as a state
Wait,
individual,
what was that? California personal income last month rose 10%. That
I wouldn't gauge anything between last month and now, or
well, that's because
anything
the
that you've
Chinese
had
are
is
pumping
cheap.
money into real
anything that
estate.
shows a positive movement.
Yeah, the Chinese are pumping all the money that they can into the real estate there to get away from their country, forcing the native Californians to voluntarily, of course, sell their property and come out here to Utah and jack our prices up so that our kids, if I had one, wouldn't be able to purchase a house in the future.
We had a very good discussion on housing. I agree. The housing market is unbelievable.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, to be honest with you. I have the opportunity to sell my house for a huge profit. That's awesome. But the person coming up, I mean, hey, welcome to the free market.
The problem is you got to move somewhere.
Well, I'll tell you what. Here I'm looking at property in Brazil, and I can live without a mortgage here now because of the profit that I made from the sale of my house if I sold it. There's tons of economic opportunity all over this country here in Brazil. I'll tell you that right now. But the problem with Brazil is their Second Amendment rights are on the fringe of this next election. I mean, currently I can't even own an AK-47 in Brazil. The only thing I can own is a pistol, and I still have to go through tons of hoops to do that. And I'll be honest, I've watched some videos recently on the news, local news here. You know, this guy in a bicycle comes out with a freaking pistol and kills his target, and I watch like 30 men run away. And I'm thinking to myself, that's the most feminine thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Watching 30 men run away from one dude with a gun. But no one has a gun here.
What's
Where in Utah,
Bolsonaro's thoughts on no, I don't want to call it Second Amendment on gun rights.
well, he's definitely much more pro gun than the guy that will be running against him. The guy running against Bolsonaro, his name is Lula. He was the previous president that was put in jail, and through, you know, like you can't really keep the Communist Party down when they're so well connected. The federal judges got him out of jail. They're even going to run him again. It's actually pretty impressive how much power the Communist Party has down here. But
I think that's all of Latin America, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, we can all get a Pinochet.
But
oh,
but I will tell you this right now: if Bolsonaro wins and they expand their Second Amendment rights down here in Brazil, this place is going to be a viable location. I have a lot of hope for it. I think.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I want to know, how are they? I mean, honestly, the right to self-defense is good. I want to know how they are with private property protection, because we always hear about how the Norwegian countries, Sweden and Finland and Denmark and that, are socialist states, but they have the strongest private property rights in the world. And that's, I think, where their strength lies.
Well, I don't think their private property rights are no different than ours in that respect. Yes, the government will probably use eminent domain where they have to, but so will ours.
But
yeah,
we were looking at expat in Brazil for a while. Is there pretty good expat?
Yeah, I guess so. There's not so many where I am right now. I'm in Vitória, Espírito Santo. So this place is kind of like, it's a little hidden gem. It hasn't been polluted by too many tourists yet. I can still get a place for, I can get I guess you could call it a luxury 2-bedroom, 2-bath for less than 250,000 reals, which, you know, divide that by 5 is American dollars.
So what would that be?
$50,000? Or you said divided by 5, 50,000?
Yeah.
You can get it. Can you really? It's that cheap?
Now, I myself, I bought one just outside of the city for about 60,000 on, you know, it's a condo. It's got like swimming pools and a big barbecue area and stuff like that. And I rent it out. But I know America used to have all these commercials about Belize real estate and stuff like that.
We looked at Belize.
But yeah, I think just Brazil is a better option just because they're more freedom orientated down here than countries like Belize. And believe it or not, I actually think their government is even less corrupt than most of those types of countries, because they do have that 2-party system that keeps track of each other. And if one person does something wrong, the other party is going to jump on them and attack them, and vice versa. And that, you know, that checks and balance, that's important, because most countries, they just have like a 1-party system that's in charge, and they get away with murder, literally. So that's one good thing about Brazil is you're gonna have all these different government agencies attacking each other. So that I think brings more freedom to a country when it has to stay within boundaries of some sort. And again, the real estate value compared to the American dollar, gosh, I just don't know why people in America haven't yet exploited this place to the maximum level, because it's it's ripe. It is a ripe place for investing.
I keep getting beach property inquiries
Yeah.
from Brazil. I'm going to show you that. Just let me know.
Yeah, and my property that I bought, it is about, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 blocks away from a beach.
Is it? So can you kick your tenants out and let me and my wife come down there for a couple of months?
You know, I'll be honest with you. If you look on Airbnb down here in Brazil, you'll see what prices are going for really nice real estate rentals, and that kind of gives you an idea of what the market looks like. And I've owned my property since like 2017 or something like that, I think, and I've never had a problem with it. So
do you have family members manage it, or you pay somebody?
Yeah, my wife's family manages it if there's an issue, but you know, it's not like you can't buy a service or something like that too.
Okay.
Everything is here. It really is. Everything's in place. It's just a matter of people putting their money into this location, and you know, mostly it's Europeans that invest in Brazil, it seems like. So I don't know. Eventually, it's going to be discovered. It's not far from Rio de Janeiro. It's like a 6-hour drive from Rio if you drive south. So it's close enough that, you know, people are going to eventually notice it one day. But right now, it's a good buy. I'm not saying Rio is a good buy. I'm not saying São Paulo is a good buy. But at this particular location where I am, it's like a Rio de Janeiro mini, and the prices are just phenomenal.
And what's the medical down there? Is it?
It's you're gonna pay probably, like, for an older person. If you want to get a health plan, you're gonna pay about 12,000 reals a month.
Divided by 5, about 150, 200. Yeah, about 100.
Plus, you got the socialized healthcare system if you want to use that too. But if you can use the private, people use the private.
Okay. That's interesting.
But you know, it's not the worst socialized healthcare.
And when's the carnival?
The question, the question every man asks.
Right.
You know, I get to see the girls in the bikini with the feather hat.
My wife could be watching this, Jared. Now she won't let me go there then.
The food festival.
Yeah.
It's
the
a
food
celebration of Jesus, really.
Yep. And the place is ripe for breweries too, Jared. I'm just saying, like, if we could brew beer down here, it'd be pretty popular.
Yeah, what's our alcohol laws? Because Utah is, I mean, let's face it, Utah's ridiculous. But
when I show you the video of the political rally, I mean, we're out there in the public walking across this huge bridge that they shut down for the parade, and we're drinking our beers openly. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I think you got to be 18 is the law.
But I mean, what's their laws for producing beer? Like, what do you have to do? Like Mexico. Mexico's rather easy to go down and buy property in, but you can never own it. And that's why you don't see a lot of U.S. people go down and try to build a business there. They usually try to get a Mexican National Front man to do a business. Gotcha. Because you can never own property in Mexico. You can only kind of sort of rent it. What about?
Yeah, I don't think they have any laws like that, but you cannot own. No one, not even the Brazilians, can own beachfront property.
So the beaches are kept clear for
public use. Right.
Okay. So it's got to be like our BLM kind of system out here.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that all the coastal lands, they cannot be privatized and blocked.
Is there a certain distance back from the water that they go by, or like?
I'm assuming so, because right across the road from the beaches are these. Let me see if I can. Let me just show you where I am. This is a really beautiful view. Tell me if you can see this.
I can kind of see it.
Right.
Now, another question. realistically, how's the crime rate down in Brazil right now?
I would say I can't say it's horrible. It's not, because right now, like everyone from Colombia and Venezuela, all those countries, they flee to come to Brazil to, to work and live. But, if you go into the bad territories, there are drug cartels.
I imagine it's just like here, where people from the outside will look in and say, oh, America's so violent and so many people dying. But if you delete 5 bad areas, we're like 148 in murder rates in the world. If you just delete 5, not even cities, but 5 block areas in certain cities. So I imagine, because you hear reports, Brazil's got the highest murder rate in the world or the highest burglary rate in the world, and I imagine that boils down just to certain areas.
Well, if you don't pay your drug debts, they'll kill you.
Well, just don't get drug debts. Buy your drugs with cash. Why are you buying drugs on credit?
Don't buy them on credit.
You don't buy drugs. You don't buy alcohol. You don't buy food. You don't buy those use that night or that week things on credit. You only buy things that are long-term on credit, houses, cars, things like that. Never buy your drugs on credit.
What about women? Can you buy women on credit?
Well, God, that's a tough.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can run a credit card at the.
Isn't that called marriage?
Yeah, I was going to say I've got one.
That's marriage. I mean, everyone buys a woman on credit. I mean, you pay for that thing the rest of your life.
Yeah, they're probably cash only out here on that too, I'd imagine.
Okay.
But it's very liberal about there's like sex motels that are like really fancy. It's kind of interesting. And then you've got like then they'll have like those, like bars that I guess we would call them strip clubs, but yeah, they're completely liberal and open about doing anything for the price of whatever it is that day, and it's not illegal, so it's not like there's a black market on that.
So how are they on their drug laws?
Depends, because if the police can enforce it, they will. Otherwise, they'll try to control it and contain it. But if it's an area that they want to develop, they'll institute a military style raid to clean it out. That if it's that bad.
So let's say an American, and I'm going to go with the average Social Security, about $2,000 a month. Can he live comfortable down there?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is it? Okay.
There you go. You better get on it. Yeah. How long you got?
Tomorrow.
I
always say, I don't know. I was going to retire a while back, then COVID hit, and then who knows? But no, we
once they got you working from home, you're like, I can do this.
The minimum salary for a person down here is somewhere like 1,200 reals a month.
So what would that be? About 300 a month? 200?
If I were to have an employee, I could get away with paying them 70 reals a day for basic, like if I'm running a coconut stand or something like that, which is like what, $25 or something.
You're right. That is pretty hidden because, like I said, Belize was given a pretty good incentive, but they've taken that away. Then Panama is the place that everybody's pushing now. But
now, when it comes to the racial aspect of Brazil, I've noticed, like my wife pointed out something today, like we're walking down the street and there's this little white kid getting pushed in the stroller by a black lady. And my wife's like, that's going to be a nanny pushing her client's baby down the street, taking care of it. And I'm like, well, why would you say that? She's like, that's just the way it's always been here. So, it's kind of like I guess like the Germans and the Italians when they first came here to Brazil, they took over. They built the infrastructure and the factories and things like that, and they're just kind of like they are the higher class citizens here. So there is that kind of a cultural aspect here that's kind of, it's not taboo because they are addressing it. A lot of political parties are trying to institute programs to help the Black and Indian cultures get ahead now, but it's pretty blatant in terms of this area when it comes to just walking down the street, seeing who's working on what level of the labor ladder. You'll see most of the Black people, they're working the more labor intensive jobs, and the white people, they seem to be more like the store owners more often than not. So you'll definitely be able to see a cultural difference in terms of racial equality. And I mean, it's got its negatives to that. So
And so if that's the average, say $70 a day, that probably means that your average daily use products, your food and stuff, probably pretty affordable down there as well.
yeah, if you're gonna be cooking your own food, but if you go out to the restaurants, your typical plate of French fries and fish stick type materials and chicken nuggets with cheese in them and things like that, you're going to probably pay 35 reals for each plate,
So about $5. So it's probably, well, that's still pretty cheap.
Yeah, it is for us, but you got to think.
Well, for them, I'm just doing a comparison that if that's kind of their minimum wage, that kind of floats.
And then when it comes to the quality of food, I mean, we can't even compare in Tooele. It's so sad to think that
what
we eat
with 13 Mexican restaurants in a square mile, we can't compare.
No.
So what is a Brazilian main dish?
Well, their main staple is rice and beans. Their main staple is rice and beans. They do a lot of chicken, a lot of sirloin, top sirloin. They've got different types of sodas than we do. It's made with like tropical fruit from the rainforest, and they call it guaraná. That's kind of their main soda, and they're probably the most like cultural drink that I like to indulge in is called a caipirinha, which is a bunch of limes and this alcohol they call cachaça. It's like a sugar made from sugar cane, and then you just you put a little sugar in there, a little of the cachaça, the limes, and you shake it all together and pour that sucker out, and you'll enjoy that all night. You can't have more than 3 of them before you get messed up, so you got to be careful. But just the quality of the food is so much better down here. I won't lie.
Is that probably because they don't process it as much?
Probably, yeah.
Well, it's also grown fresh in most locations too.
Yeah, don't process.
The vegetables are their vegetable growing season is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and every month of the year. So we're what do we got? Like a 3-month, 4-month growing season in Utah.
So it's kind of climate, and well, that's one thing that a big argument comes down is our let's call it mega corporations that control our food. Like we have 3 like for meat, if you're buying cows, 80% of it comes through 3 companies in the nation. And you got 20% that are local. So like here, if you go to Huntsacre or Tooele Valley or then you're buying outside of that you're buying in that 20%. But other than that, it comes through three. It comes through Tyson, Cargill, and the JBL or whatever it is. So it's pretty scary. And I'm still working. I've got to get that story out on something going on there that I think affects everybody universally that we all need to be concerned with. And, I think we all need to take a turn and start, focusing on buying our products from, farmers markets, local meat shops, get it as close to home as you can, because we've got to wrestle some power back, because by giving them that power, they're allowed the ability to control the markets and then kind of hurt everyone. But before we go, we've been on here for an hour and a half, and we've got a few comments to run through. You guys okay with hanging out for those?
Yeah. Just one question, Dave. How close is the rainforest to you?
It's gone.
Yeah, I was going to say this. Now you stole my next line.
There isn't one. What rainforest?
Yeah, the rainforest is
Alaska.
The rainforest is way north of where I am. It would take an airplane to get there at this moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So Sarah says, hi, Sarah. Kendra says, all vaccines have side effects, correct? When I take my 2-year-old to get hers, they tell me the possible side effects. The flu shot has possible side effects. Okay, yeah. So my mom is an RN, and hospital had her get her vaccine. She was violently ill. She has an autoimmune disease, and now she has continuous chicken pox like rashes that the doctor has verified not shingles, on top of heart issues, which doctor did say was due to her getting the vaccine. It's really to each their own, and you never know how it will affect the individual. That's true. You guys know the band The Offspring?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The drummer got kicked out of the band because he can't take the vaccine because he has an autoimmune disorder that stops him from getting it. An autoimmune disorder that flares up when he gets a vaccine. And so he's kicked out of the band. Of course, that's a band from 40 years ago, right. So it's not like it matters. I mean, it'd be geriatric. Over 1,000 cases in Utah today. We looked at that. My doctor says, and this is from Kendra also, my doctor says, even vaccinated, you can get the Delta variant, just not as bad. And that's what true. I've heard too. And I'm not arguing that the vaccine is good or bad. I would like to sit back, and me personally, I suggest people, if you have thoughts of whether to get it or not, talk to your doctor. That's all, talk to your doctor, get advice from them. Don't listen to a moron on the internet, either one way or the other. Talk to your doctor. That's why you have them. Too bad we all couldn't go. Jake Gyllenhaal, Bubble Boy. Oh, that was a movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a true story.
Oh, really? Haven't seen the movie or met Bubble Boy. People have been forging the cards already here in the U.S. Yeah, and I imagine that'll come across. Then they are going to. There'll be a person that gets sick at a business, sends it around, something else, whatever. They'll do a test. He doesn't have the precursors for getting the vaccine, so then they'll have trackable cards. And then people just start getting the cards through other means. The black markets are going to arise anytime you drop a law. That's just what happens. It's human beings. I don't know. Either way, I hope things go good. Common sense from Jessica. Sarah says, not all vaccines or medicines can be tested on animals. I can't recall, but I think it's Tylenol, but could be aspirin. If they tested on animals such as rabbits, the rabbits would die. Yeah, true. And also, let's not forget Bayer. It was Bayer in the U.S., I believe, had HIV contaminated something or another. Got found out, so we shipped it to France and they used it.
That's capitalism.
Hell yes, capitalism for the win. Exactly. those are radios. These are our lives. Talking about the FM, AM, I suppose. Yeah, and this vaccine may be a life-saving thing, and it may be a life-destroying thing. I don't know. None of us know. Talk to your doctor. Talk to your doctor. I can only give my personal thoughts on it. I'm not ruled out getting the vaccine. I just have some personal questions, not to mention the people that really push the vaccine. Let's face it, I don't trust Fauci. Fauci was a part of making this virus when he was directed not to by Obama. And again, shout out, Trump screwed up because it was under Trump, because Trump didn't have a clue what the hell he was doing, that Fauci got to start up this making vaccines stronger. I do not like the thought of them saying, let's make super deadly virus so we can test it. Okay, that's a good idea. We are going to make something that's going to destroy humanity. We keep playing that game. Stop it, knock it off, Anyways, back to the note. Sarah, there's so much to think about when talking about vaccines. This is a 4 semesters of biotechnology, and I have had negative semesters of that. That was me saying that, not her.
Yeah.
I have always felt that if I can take a petri dish and make it glow and inject that glowing DNA into a fish to make them bioluminescent, I have no doubt someone could create a biological warfare virus to depopulate the world and that's what I'm saying. They could do that on accident. We've had biowarfare has been with the human race since, pre-Genghis Khan. They were catapulting dead cows over walls to cause the
Alexander
plague.
the Great. Yeah.
So that's and so don't, Fauci, if you ever watch this, knock it off. I don't care how strong you think the lab is or how much control you think you have or what you think is around the corner. Don't do that. The aliens will find a smoldering ruins and they'll find notes and your name will be on it. So don't do it. Just knock that shit off. Why don't you go and invent the cancer cure? Good hell. Spend your money wisely. We got people dying of cancer all the time. Instead, you go and invent shit that kills a lot of people. Jerk face. Sorry, I broke it.
Well, see, I can remember during my NBC days, way back when, biological warfare is used back home because the assumption is the military guy will have the vaccine. So the whole idea is to break his heart because mom and dad got the biological warfare, dumped in the water or something like that.
It is, or it could be used for sieges and economic destruction.
Because the fact is, the military fighting man is going to be vaccinated. But so there is an argument that to find out what to vaccinate, you have to develop the virus. The coronavirus has always been around, correct?
Yes.
Not the variant of this one, but coronavirus.
And this one, I would argue, we wouldn't have to find out how to vaccinate this one had they not made it and released it on the earth.
We'll find out how they got there.
Why don't they invent better erectile dysfunction pills? Do a service to humanity, Fauci. Don't stop doing a disservice. Or make a better birth control, whatever. Just don't, hey, we're going to invent something. We're going to throw. Here's the conspiracy that they took the coronavirus and injected it with the AIDS spikes or HIV spikes or whatever, made it super tough and hit that thing on the roid, send it to the gym for 3 months and let it out on the world. Okay, good. Now invent the vaccine for it and then strip the nations dry through the force of the state because pharmaceutical companies are gonna be rich. Anyways, capitalism for the win, right? Jessica says they don't give a crap about their people. So what if their people suffered? Businesses suffered. That wasn't their concern. They wanted to cripple other countries at the expense of their own for this political power. Who is they? That's the question. That the big conspiracy out there is that this is the kickoff to the great economic reset. And that is a big conspiracy theory. We do know Davos is real. We do know what those shady buggers there say, and they talk about an economic reset oncoming. And the conspiracy is that this destroying our economy and stripping our rights. I mean, right now we've got large lending houses buying up all the houses. I get 2 calls and 2 emails a week wanting to buy my house, which is insane. And they are offering across the board as much money as I would get if I sold it. They're offering.
Are they really? Is that
yes,
the offer? Wow.
But what that's going to do is that's going to put the populace into a renting class. That these big financial houses are going to own all the property, and good or bad. But that's the conspiracy going on right now, that this was the precursor event to send us into that economic tailspin, that we're going to come out on the other side. And as that creepy bastard at Davos said, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And that's what he said at the end of 2019 at Davos. What's his name? The German guy. Anyways.
That is a conspiracy theory.
Well, he did say that. You can watch the video of him saying that. I mean, they video.
Can I be happy and own nothing? That's
a question. I don't know.
It's a valid question.
Will we just be back into like a feudalist state where we will just be, serfs on the Lord's land?
Or are you happy thinking you own something?
I don't know. Anyways, Sarah says, I'm traveling to San Diego and San Francisco in the next 6 months. I grew up there and nearly everyone I know is moving out or afraid to live there anymore because of the police being pushed out. That's a good question. Those videos coming out of San Francisco where that guy pushed his bicycle into Walgreens, filled a bag and pushed it out. It's insane. Yeah. Anyways, Kendra says, I got vaccinated because I have travel plans and my doctor suggested it as per my immune system is still weak from chemo from 3 years ago. And that's a good point. And if you want to get vaccinated, I want you to get vaccinated. I think it's a good thing. I don't think being vaccinated is a bad thing. And I don't know. There are some doctors that are coming out and saying, if one of my patients has fought cancer, I would tell them not to get it. And there's some saying if some of my patients fought cancer, I'd tell them to get 3 of the shots. That's the thing. The spectrum is wide out there. Talk to your personal doctor, the one that you know and knows you. That's it.
Do you have one?
No.
Okay.
Well, kind of. I do. But anyways, I haven't been to the doctor in a while. The last time I went to the doctor was when I pulled up in the car and a girl came out in a spacesuit, stuck a Q-tip down, scratched the inside of the back of my skull with a Q-tip, and then left and went inside. And they said, we will be calling you tomorrow. Well, they didn't call. The state of Utah called and wanted me to tell on all my friends that I'd been around. And, thank God that there's still liberty for me to, keep my mouth shut. And I told them I'm not giving any names because I don't want to sick the state on my friends and family. So they start harassing them. But that's just, my opinion. Go talk to your doctor. If you have questions, talk to your doctor. If you want to get it, get it. If you don't. Right now, you still have the liberty to do that. To me, liberty is the most important value in life. The liberty to live free, the liberty to be the person you want to be. That's just my personal opinion. Other people may disagree with me. Other people may argue against that. But for me, that's the highest value.
And mine is looking out for your neighbor. I have liberty, but I have a duty to protect my neighbor.
I haven't killed any of my neighbors.
Well, keep giving that virus, you might.
I haven't given any of them the virus. But
But the fact is, people are carrying that virus.
How would it be if you vaccinated, gave your neighbor, caught it and gave it to your neighbor?
I'm less likely to. I'm less likely to carry it if I'm
But
vaccinated.
what if that happens? See,
There's a what if.
you're throwing an accusation, a what if accusation
what?
at me,
What
and
if?
I threw it back at you.
I'd feel bad.
Okay.
But I've taken every check to try
So
to
have I.
prevent it.
I've taken every responsible
but-
check that I feel secure in.
But and you can go talk to a doctor, Dr. Fauci, doctor. I mean, and you can pay your $25 copay to pay for a doctor. I mean, there's a whole lot of doctors out there. Dr. Birchie, get the vaccination. Everybody could say that.
Who's Dr. Birchie?
That was Dr. Fauci's sidekick. That was the female.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
But
Yeah. I mean, I would talk to your doctor.
Your doctor.
I would talk to a doctor that doesn't have an invested interest in either side, just has an invested interest
and
in you.
And if you waited a year and a half to talk to him now, it's sad. It's like I said, I'm tired of seeing people on Facebook saying, go get the vaccination because I believe God was going to protect me. Then God is going to protect you. He came out with something. It's called a vaccination. But
either way, you're rolling the dice here. If you
In that
take the vaccination,
but I'm playing the
in
odds.
that case, God came out with the disease too, because he had Fauci pay to have it created.
yeah.
But no, I just there's a point to where if you're dying on that deathbed, just accept responsibility. Don't come out here and say, I want everybody to get a vaccine, because it gets old. I mean, everybody out here has said, get the vaccination. For us to get the herd immunity, we need to get 90%, 85% vaccinated to even have a chance not to get that echo variant. So I'm the other way. Yeah, you can go free and you can say, yep, I'm free. Gosh, I don't have to wear a mask, but I have to wear shoes. You know, if I go to that store, I got to wear shoes. I got to put on my shirt. But to protect my neighbor.
How did the mask come into this?
Well, it's the same thing. Mask. First it was mask. Now it's not shot. I'm free. I'm free. I don't have to wear a mask. I'm free. And it's like, yeah, you're free, but you're not caring for. We're a community. You have to care for it. If you don't care for your neighbor, so be it. Be free by yourself.
If the community really cared, why are we giving people these weird dust masks that are not even really efficient? You have to wear an N95.
Really
you have to wear.
Well,
you have to wear a half-face respirator with.
I
with
care for my
100s.
community.
If the community really cared, why are they inventing the disease?
What? I thought it was a guy with a suit that invented it.
The Chinese are the ones who released it, not the community. So I don't see that question as relevant.
I don't see why they're inventing it.
Well, I could see.
You know how many dystopian stories start out with inventing a disease?
I
mean, seriously, one of the big ones, wasn't it? The Stand started out with inventing a disease.
Yeah, I remember.
How about Andromeda strain? A disease comes in from outer space. At least then we didn't make it and release it on ourselves. We're going to cry foul about global warming and everything else while we're inventing the man killer.
See, and I believe to prevent it, you have to invent. It's a preemptive strike.
Jesus Christ. To invent it, to prevent it, you have to invent it?
To prevent it.
To stop rape, I've got to go out and force myself on someone.
All I know is that when, like doing the chemical suits, you had to invent the chemicals to find out what.
The suits came long after the chemicals, and they did not invent the chemicals so they could design a suit.
They didn't?
They did not
okay.
release chlorine in World War I so they could design the gas mask. That was a response to chlorine.
Oh, so you're saying wait. No, and I would say.
So I'm saying don't release chlorine on the Canadians in 1917.
It is the first thing is to win the battle against the disease, and then find out how it came. You know, you can put a lot of energy.
I agree.
Okay.
And on top of that, don't invent any more.
If we invented it,
let's not do any more.
Oh, okay.
Let's stop that. Can we stop making man killer diseases? Please.
No, not till we solve them. I mean, you really
not till we solve them.
Do you think Dugway out there, do they have a purpose with their biological warfare division?
Yes, I know exactly what they do
Okay.
out there.
So is it a purpose? Do they invent it?
No,
They don't invent anything.
no,
They don't grow these little
They
things
test-
in Petroglass.
You know what Dugway does is
Hey.
they have these known diseases and chemicals, and they test equipment to the survivability against diseases that already exist, that are
But they
here
grow
and
it out
present.
there, right?
They don't invent it. They have the diseases are present. And if I
Dave
remember,
left us.
oh, well, his camera just shut
All
off.
right.
And everything they have out there in the bio lab
Yeah.
is inert.
Everything.
That's what what
You-
they claim. That's their level.
Same thing.
And I don't know, but you're
same thing. Runan K claimed.
Wuhan didn't claim that,
Okay,
but anyways, but Dugway,
you know, for somebody who doesn't trust the government, you do trust Dugway.
I don't trust Dugway.
Okay,
I'm just telling you what Dugway's purpose
And
is.
I think
Dugway
there's
is a
little-
testing ground.
right.
Dugway isn't an invention ground. Now, if you're thinking of that lab in by Bethesda,
Okay, that's
starts
the one.
with
I
a
was,
D.
yeah,
if
okay,
you're
that-
thinking that one, it may be something different.
Right.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay.
I am familiar with
because
Dugway.
Dugway gets their stuff from them.
Sure, but Dugway's job is to test equipment against these known diseases and chemicals. That's why they keep some of them
All
on
right.
hand,
All right.
right?
No, I don't say that's right.
Let's
but I
not invent something else that Dugway
All right.
has to test.
So when we go to war with Russia, if we go to war,
Let's not go to war with Russia and call it a day.
Oh yeah, but you. So Russia's.
First of all, we're probably not going to
Shouldn't
go
we?
to war with Russia. Russia, we are not on Russia's menu.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I can guarantee we're not. Russia understands that its minuscule
joined.
economy.
Oh.
He's back. Its minuscule economy could not even last a year at war. It couldn't last
See,
a quarter at war
I
with
look at
us.
more of preemptive. I mean,
China's a little different animal.
okay, so should we be training? Maybe China's getting some disease. Should we
How
know what
about
they
we
got?
try not to go to war with them too?
I'm not for war. I'm
so
deadly
okay,
against war.
so here's what we do.
Okay.
China might be inventing a new disease to fight us
Right.
with. So let's pay China to invent that disease so we can learn to fight it. Come on.
Well,
Let's not. You can't
Okay.
justify inventing it and then it being released. The release was an accident.
It was an accident.
The release, whether it was on purpose or an accident, but inventing it is dumb.
I could see the reason why. I mean, I don't like it either, but I could see the reason why.
It's going to happen either way. I mean, the future is ripe for biological warfare, and you have to learn to live with it. He's right about that, but yeah, it sucks. But
And
guys,
so we pay the most likely enemy to be the one that invents and controls our biological warfare invention, physical defense, because everything we use to defend it, which I almost probably our military is made there. So we've outsourced. I think honestly we should go back in time and kick Kissinger and Nixon right square in the gluteus maximus over what they did with our economic ties to China, and then every president after that for reinforcing it under the dream that it's going to liberalize China. When no, it didn't liberalize China. It just made us more authoritarian.
and that's usually the direction government goes, though.
But
But guys, I got to let you go.
Yeah.
Hey,
I got to go back downstairs and drink.
all
Have
right.
a good night, man.
Hey, next week's show, you're at the Sex Hotel, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thank
Good
you
to see
later.
you.
All right, everyone, we're going to get out of here. It's a fun argument tonight. Glad people got involved with it. We're probably never going to agree on stuff, but then again, maybe this is a faulty argument to make, but I stepped to this without a political agenda because I realized that this stuff was done under Trump. Because Trump, with no matter how good his ideas were, his execution was left lacking when it came to bureaucracies. And honestly, I don't see any good to come out of this. I don't see any way where AIDS and the coronavirus would have morphed into this machine it is that now we've got to fight, which apparently that's what they say it is. I don't know. I don't know what AIDS looks like or the coronavirus. I don't know what they look like. I don't have an electron microscope, but I'm not happy about us being in a state to where we've lost economic growth. We stand on the precipice of, right now, they've had an eviction moratorium and an eviction moratorium extension. That helps people out. But what that does is that hurts landlords. Now, granted, everyone sees landlords as these guys wearing tuxedos and with monocles in, but the average landlord is a retiree that is trying to supplement his or her income in their retirement by renting out their house. Now, they still have to pay property taxes on that, but they can't evict if they're not getting paid for that stuff. So then the idea is brought up, okay, we'll relieve them of their property tax, which throws that burden back onto the general populace. Or worse yet, we're going to make them whole, throws that burden back onto the general populace. That just makes a nation poorer by them sucking more money out of everyone, sucking the ability for you to buy things and grow and start a business and invent something and do whatever else. It just sucks more money out of us, pulls it into the nation's capital where, boy, they've sure been good with their finances over the last 25 years. And I don't care what party you talk about. They've all been god awful. And so where do we go? We stand on the precipice of a major catastrophe economically in this nation. And we keep leading down this path. And at every turn, the people who have guided us into this economic nightmare has been the government. And we got to quit giving them the ability to continue to lead us. They're not a good guide.
Oh, I'm mixed. The landlord thing I'm mixed on, but I guess if the rental is excused from paying the rent, the landlord's excused from paying the bank. So I mean, it.
So what do we pass it to the general populace, or we do what we do nowadays? Right now, all of our debt, that's fine. That's just a number. But if you love your kids and your grandkids, pay attention to that, because that's where that debt's going to continue to go. Someone has to pay the bill. I believe that strong, honorable men call for the hard times to be in their time, so the easy time will be in their children's and their grandchildren's time. And that's what honorable men do.
It's the same argument though in the 80s saying we were going to bust. I don't know. I think I'll talk to you about it in a year and see where we're at. I really think we're going to get through it. I mean, the 900,000 jobs created this.
No, 900,000 jobs that were shut down.
Right.
They let the people go back to work.
Okay. So
and we stand on the precipice
that's a step, right?
Of those guys. No, that's not a step. They took a step back and then moved back to where they were. Actually, they didn't quite move back to where they were. A step is when they move forward.
401ks up. Personal savings up. Stock market's up.
Because you couldn't spend it anywhere. And no, the stock market is not up.
But the stock market's not up?
No, none of those things it's all, no. I know that I am not as financially sound as I was 2 years ago.
I am. Of course, I invested in coronavirus vaccines. So, I took advantage of that.
The wheel flu was genetically altered to infect humans so that they could try to find a vaccine for it. Yeah. Okay, Kendra says some of those landlords still have mortgages to pay on the rental property. Right. Yes. So who pays that? And then people are bitching about the landlords selling their rental properties now. And that's what's happening. They're selling it out from under it. And those properties are being sold to certain, we could name them. The names are out there on who's buying them up. It's going to end up to where there is going to be damn near a monopoly on housing. And then that gives them the freedom to manipulate the market at whim. And if that doesn't scare you, I don't know what will. Because it has nothing to do with the economy. They don't care about the economy. F word. I saw.
You're trying, aren't you?
I've been trying.
I know
I've been
you
trying
did. You've
to
been pretty
behave.
good.
I saw we are just commoners, less than commoners. We're peasants. Right now they are stripping the proletariat for the bourgeoisie, and that's people. If you, that's where we're at, and that's where it's going to be. Let us eat cake, I guess. This is all for a higher political top 1% reason, and our suffering, and the business is suffering, and the economy is suffering. Doesn't matter, because they achieved their agenda by releasing this virus on the world. And, that's a big question. There are people invested in the outcome of COVID, and they capitalize on it just like you capitalized investing in the vaccine.
And we're for capitalism, aren't we?
Yeah. I really thought it was going to open up, so I put money into cruise liners.
Did you?
Yeah.
They said that.
Yeah.
And is that
They climbed for about 6 seconds.
did they go back down?
No, this new Delta variant dropping like flies.
I know it's a
dropping like
we were
flies.
looking at going on a cruise too, but
yeah,
the same thing. I don't want to be locked in a little room with my wife for 3 weeks.
She might be watching this. You need to start saying, as much as I love my wife, she would not enjoy me being locked in a room.
No, I think the feeling is mutual.
But no,
it's a complicated.
I cannot, under any circumstance, justify inventing the man killer, and then I definitely can't justify releasing it on the world on purpose or on accident.
And this is just a podcast I was listening to, and it was a history podcast, talked about when, if there's so many stars out there, why haven't we seen anybody else? And the argument was said, the reason we haven't seen anybody else because civilization gets to the point that they can wipe each other out.
The great filter is what it's called.
And then they wipe each other out.
No, they don't wipe each other. They wipe themselves.
They wipe out civilization, right? So maybe that's why we haven't seen anybody else. I mean, and it's a fact. And they talked about
World War I. Distance and caloric cost to travel. I mean, our caloric cost to get to Mars is something that is pretty heavy.
But I mean,
and that's not even to leave the solar system. And we don't even know what's between, what's between solar systems. So that's another cost. We don't know what's in between.
But the thing is, since World War I, we became that mass destruction. And every decade we get closer.
What scares me is we say that, but we haven't become that yet. That's what scares me. We've survived with what we have.
Right.
We've made it. I mean, since the nuclear bomb, we've had what? Technically like 3 generations born, 4 generations born, and we've held it there, which you can argue that the Rosenbergs are criminals, and yes, they are. But if it wasn't for them stealing it and giving it to the USSR, I'm afraid we might have seen its use again. But because they stole it, I'm afraid we'd have probably saw it used in the Korean War.
Right. MacArthur wanted to go with it.
But because the USSR had it, and granted, at the time they were rudimentary and weren't very successful at using it, but they had it. But that stopped us from proliferating it more into the world. But what I'm worried about, the nuclear bomb is still something that has a finger on the switch. It's not going to accidentally go off. What I'm afraid of is we haven't made our society killer yet. We haven't made the genocide switch yet. And viruses, new bacteria, and possibly AI, I think, in my mind, are what could be that.
It could be.
And that's what, so we need to gain some morality in our upper echelons, and that's what we lack. You know, when you say, I don't care about my neighbors, how about someone who doesn't care about the whole race?
Well,
He blindly invent something. I want you to invent something that is dozer. Knock it off. That's ridiculously infectious and violent to the human body. I want you to invent something that does all that for me, please. Take my money. When the lab people came and said, I can make something that I could, they probably made a promise. We can make a disease that would decimate the population. They didn't meet that. Fauci should be suing them because they didn't meet requirements. But anyways, when they came and did that, did he do the take my credit card, please? That's the question. Where was his morality that day?
I don't know. I can see where they justify it, saying they have to create it.
I can't
to be able to fight it.
That's a bullshit. Again, that's a BS argument.
Okay,
that is a BS argument. We've got to commit this act so that we can learn how to stop committing this act. That's a BS argument.
It's like, okay, I got a pistol. That's like, now I want a rifle. I want a machine gun.
Cain's got to invent killing his brother so that he can teach us not to kill our brothers. Seriously.
I'm telling you,
I've got a pistol. Now I want a rifle.
But
it could be.
Does one kill better?
Sure. And it could be a guy wants it for a hobbyist reason. It could be all numbers of reason. It could be like me, who owns firearms. I have never shot someone, nor did I collect or buy those in order to shoot someone. That was not the goal when I acquired them.
But the goal, and if it is, I'm going to go read on I was seeing where everybody's coming out saying it probably was the lab.
Fauci's saying it now.
Well, he's not. But it still has to come out. I mean, it's for you like Fauci, you don't like Fauci, but you're going to use him as a reference.
What's that?
I mean, he's got.
I don't like him, but I'm going to use him as a reference.
So,
what do you mean?
No, well, you said
like when I apply for a job, I'm like, hey,
No,
Fauci
well,
thinks that I would be.
I think Fauci had good intentions. I mean, I don't think he's this black.
I don't honestly. I don't either.
I think he thought if he was doing that, he was doing it for the good of the country. Was there a mistake? Something happened. I agree. Do we need to find out? Yeah, we need to find out. But do we need to fight this thing first and stop it?
The thing is Obama saw it. Obama put a moratorium on it.
On the testing.
On inventing.
Okay.
That's why I was saying Trump didn't pay enough attention. It was done under Trump. Obama stopped it.
Okay. So what
I don't politically align with Obama, but at least he's enough of a humanist to say, let's not invent this.
And that's why they said don't do it. It was just stop that coronavirus, or just stop the lab.
Stop inventing
the
crazy
they
diseases.
Stopped it because they were scared that this would happen to the Wuhan lab, is that it would get out.
Duh.
They wanted to do it somewhere else.
I don't know. Obama wanted
to do it somewhere else.
Obama put a moratorium on gain of function research, period. Not a place on the
I'm going to go
project.
I'm going to look. There's two things I'm looking when I leave.
That we don't want to invent what kills us.
It would be perfect if I lived in a perfect land, and I trust the Russians, to be our friends or whatever, and not believe it.
What do the Russians have to do with it?
Oh my God. They keep hitting our internet. They keep hitting our big. That's no problem with you. I mean, that could be the problem to wipe everything out. I mean, do you agree that they're behind the internet hits?
I
I don't know, but you know the Chinese. I mean, you won't research anything to do with Russia, but you do know the Chinese.
Well, Fauci had came out and admitted.
So really,
because it came out
it's
in his
easy
emails.
to turn a blind eye to Russia.
Well, it came out in his email, so he kind of had to. I mean, there's a big congressional hearing about it about a
Right.
month ago.
So
It was kind of a big deal.
it was a big deal.
You know, kind of, just a little bit.
Kind
You
of
know,
like the Capitol thing, but it was.
yeah, I guess we can
Well-
argue about the Capitol. Yes, the Capitol was horrible, but everything Black Lives Matter burned down didn't matter. I mean,
there we
you
go.
know, 2.5 million in damage versus
4 cops committed
4
suicide
hours.
because that's not bad. That's not bad. But you know why? Because it was white
Okay.
faces up there. It
It
wasn't
was
black faces.
17
When it's
cops.
black faces, it's different. With
what about 17 cops murdered?
that was the Capitol is a symbol of our country.
Oh, Jesus, the Capitol is what
Of
rapes
course,
us
you don't
every
care.
day.
Yeah, you don't care about it. I do. I care
I
about my
don't.
country.
You know what? I would care
I
if they raided.
You care about cops,
My
but
house.
unless a cop is getting the shit beat out of him with a flag, then it's like, oh no, you know what? He's not a cop. He's a federal cop. He deserves that shit.
Did I
Rather
say
than
that?
rather than saying, oh,
Why do you
why
got to
did-
put words in my mouth?
well,
to
because last
justify
time
me?
you wanted me to look at videos where the cops let him in. You won't acknowledge that what happened. up
There's
there was
videos
wrong.
where the
Okay.
cops open the gates.
Do
And
you
let 'em in.
agree that the Capitol was attacked?
Yeah.
Do you agree it was with Trump supporters?
Probably.
Okay, no problem. I mean, if you do your research,
I
like you
mean,
do everything
John
else you wanna
Sullivan
bring
was
up.
there.
John Sullivan.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's not a Trump
How
supporter.
many people were there?
I haven't a clue.
There's 400. Oh, there's 400 arrested, right?
Okay, 400 arrested.
I mean, okay.
How do you feel about due process?
I do. I feel it.
Okay, none of those 400 have received anything comporting with due process. How do you feel about that?
How do you say they haven't done anything with due process?
They
They
haven't.
attacked the Capitol. They were
So due
insurrectionists.
process is gone.
Well, yeah, when you're attacking the country, yeah.
Oh, okay. So due process is gone when you attack.
Well,
the
it's not due
country.
process. What
All
due
right.
process aren't they getting? Did they get an attorney?
Some of them no, and they've
What-
been
what?
denied
Who
rights
hasn't?
to attorneys. They've been put on
So wait,
solitary
so-
confinement.
So if a black guy hit a cop with a flag in Oregon,
Okay,
would you say that he should be locked up?
I would say that he shouldn't be denied rights to visit with his attorney. He shouldn't be put on.
Then nobody's been
hold
denied
on.
rights.
Of course, this is just what's coming out. And granted, I understand that you wouldn't follow this. And me, honestly, I don't care. I think they were retards that attacked that whatever happened that day.
There's no whatever. We know what
my
happened.
statement to them on that day was, why are you doing that? Why are you going there? You're not doing anything.
See, okay, well, I would say one thing. At least you've done a little bit because your story has changed tremendously.
What
over the last,
part has changed?
last when we were here with O'Sullivan, it was like, oh, they were invited in, and it was Black Lives Matter was involved in it, and you got to watch these videos. That it was a lot of this was made up.
You remember James was here, right?
Right.
John is his brother.
Right. I know who John Sullivan is.
Okay. Well,
And-
why was he
and
there?
I would say anybody who talks about their brother the way James has talked about John, I wouldn't.
Okay, but
I mean,
what about him being there?
Okay, there was one person there,
Okay. Well, there were
And he
two. He was in a
videotaped.
group of two.
and he was videotaped.
Yes, and
Okay.
there's reported that there's videos of him
Okay.
committing some acts.
Okay.
All right. Now, me, either way, I don't care because I'm not you see, you look at this as a dichotomy,
No.
but the
Well,
only
I
difference
look at
is
the way you've put it in front of me, and
I
you
want
refuse
them
to
held
acknowledge.
to the same. I want everyone held to the same legal account. That's what I want.
They had guns.
None of them. There was not
That
one
is not
gun
true.
found.
Oh, there's been like 40 charges with people with guns.
No, not one.
All right.
There hasn't been a charge passed.
There was bombs put out, wasn't there? Didn't
nope.
they put up bombs? They didn't put up.
That was
That's something else.
that was a
okay.
false report. There wasn't.
No.
There wasn't even bombs found.
There wasn't bombs found.
No.
Boy,
You know what the
you're reading
strongest
something
charge is standing against all of them right now?
on death.
No.
Oh,
Trespass and stopping a legitimate process. Those are the two strongest
destruction
charges.
of property wasn't. Isn't
Those are smaller
that's
charges than the two
destruction
they've
of,
got.
My gosh, you wanted to hang all these black guys that were spray painting.
I didn't want to hang anybody.
Okay, no, but
You're putting words in my mouth. You're
No.
being a dishonest actor.
that's not true. That is not true.
You're being a dishonest actor.
no. What
People
I'm
that
being
burn
is
down
question-
buildings, I want them to stand trial. Lots of
even if
buildings
it's the
were burned
Capitol,
down.
even though you don't think the Capitol is
I never said I don't want them to stand trial.
Let's look at the other videos that where you were talking about this, where it's changed. I mean, we do have it on tape.
Okay, what did I say? Did I say they shouldn't stand trial?
I'm not a walking tape guy, but yeah,
No.
you were talking about patriots there. I mean, it's like, oh my god.
No, you said patriots. I said,
agree.
what is a patriot?
I'm glad you came over
I said
this
a
side and at
patriot.
least realized
You
that
are
those
such a dishonest actor.
That is not true.
Bullshit. You're being
Who the
dishonest
fuck
right
do you
now.
think you're talking to?
I know
who
who the
think.
fuck do I think I'm talking to? I'm
Yeah, you
talking
think
to
you
a
gotta
dishonest
use
actor.
All right, then dishonest.
You said
you are a fucking
you guys,
living your fantasy. And
you
you're
guys
a
were
liar.
mentioning patriots, and I said a patriot is someone
Oh,
who
man,
overthrows
I'm
our
done,
government.
You're fucking talk to yourself. I mean, it is.
All right. Yeah. Fuck right off.
Fuck you, man. Who the fuck do you think you're talking to?